Alright, so I'm going to go over how to use the stake measure code that I have written. And if you're going to use this code, I just want to apologize in advance. It was one of the first codes I ever wrote in the year of 2016. Look at that. So I'm a lot better at this stuff now, but it's come too far. It works for the most part, so we're just going to use it, and it should work out really well. If you're not familiar with MATLAB, you don't need to be if everything runs smoothly, but you do need to be if you run into errors, which may actually happen. So in a general sense, my MATLAB is set up where I have on the left here is files. You can go to different folders and find files and things. On the right is a workspace with variables, and at the bottom is a command window that tells me errors, like when I tried to run a thing and then canceled it, I ran into an error. So the way that I like to run these codes is you could just press this big arrow up here, but the problem is if you run into a single error, it's not going to save any of your progress. You have to start over from the beginning. So instead, I'm going to use these three buttons up here. There's run in advance, or there's individual run, and then also advance. And it split things up into sections, and I delineate sections by using these double percentage signs. And so the first section is just called setup. So I'm going to click in here. It's highlighted in yellow. I'm going to press run section. So the first thing we want to do is choose our image folder. So I'm going to navigate to the place that I want to measure images from, which will be Port Heighton. And the images are in community monitoring and then time lapse. And there's two different sites and also some images that aren't really put where they're supposed to be. So this is in the MATLAB thing, but I'm just going to look in a normal Windows Explorer, see what's going on here real quick. So in here, we have just a few images, which is kind of odd. They don't seem to want to pop up. Okay. So it looks like I just captured a few images in 2020, which is cool, but wow, things have really changed here. Oh my god, camera moved. Okay, we got some mysteries to solve there. So we won't worry about that right now. Let's see, let's go to Old Tank Farm 2. So the reason that there's 1 and 2 is that there was so much erosion we had to move the camera. So it was split to 2 where the new camera is supposed to be perfectly still. And then we separate the folders out. So here's the format of year, month, day. So this is 2017, May 22nd. And generally what we do is we put, every time they send us photos, we put them into a folder. We put that entire collection into a folder. And so each time they send it to us, then we make a new folder and just name the folder based on the date range that the photos were. And the reason for that is sometimes there's gaps in the photos, and sometimes the camera moves a little bit, and so we need to recalibrate it. And so, for example, here's a gap where it collected up to January 11th, 2018, and then there's a gap to April 14th. It didn't collect anything. And so April 14th was actually the last time that we received images. So I'm going to start doing measurements from beyond that. And in MATLAB, in the MATLAB prompt, I can go here and I could select either one folder or I could select multiple and just go through all of them all the way up to May 2019. But I want to double check that the cameras don't shift or anything. So sometimes they get disturbed and something happens and they move so much that you have to recalibrate the photo. So I'm looking at the last photo in that folder from April to May 2018. Here it is, a nice stake right in the center, another stake way out there, some cones, torn up road, very good. And then make this a little bigger so I can see everything. And then I'll go to the next folder and just look at the next photo, this one. And when I put it here, stake's in the same spot. So looks happy. And I'll do the same for, let's see here. Okay. I'll do the same for the last photo in this folder. Just double check. Can flash the other one on. Looks good, looks happy. So what I'm finding here is that they're both consistent enough where I can at least tie these two folders together. So let's just check the last one. I'm going to open up that last image in this folder and then go to the final folder that I have. So we're a little behind here. We need to run through 3 folders. And I'll just go to the last one. And if this one matches, then we're good. And well, let's see. Yeah, it's pretty good. Might have moved a little bit down, but I don't think that is going to impact us too much. So we're good. We're happy. We can go back to the code. So here I will select 3 folders. I guess I won't. I guess I can only do one at a time. So the whole thing was a bust. But the good thing is the calibration file should still work. So that's really the key here, is that since the 3 folders are consistent, we only really need to calibrate on the first one. So I will select it, and then it goes to the folder, has all the images, and I can move to the next section, calibrate site. So I'll click on it, it turns all yellow. I'll just scroll through, you can see a lot of stuff is happening. I'm going to press run section and say calibration does exist. Dun dun. And navigate to the calibration folder, which should be in time-lapse coding calibration. And ideally there will be a calibration file, and you can look at the date stamp on it. So this one is PTH, which is Port Huiden, OTF, the old tank farm, which is where we are, and 7, which is profile number 7, and cal2rb. So calibration, I guess, for camera number 2 when the camera moved, and then it was done by me, RB. So I'll press open, and a bunch of variables load in. So remember when I said if you just press run and then you run into a single error, then you have to start over. Whereas if you do it this way, running section by section, these variables are made and they're all populated here with a bunch of stuff. And that way, if we run into more errors in the future, which we undoubtedly will, or if we just want to try a different method, then we don't lose our progress. So now I am going to go to the next section. So we have our calibration data loaded in, which what that means is that the location of the stakes on profile 7 have been identified, and the distance between them has been measured, so it knows basically the size of each pixel along that profile in real measurement space. So it knows each pixel is, for example, 30 centimeters or something like that. It's probably closer to like 3 centimeters. And then a few other things that help it do that stuff in nice codey language. So one option is to only use images at noon. And the reason you would want to do this is if you have basically just a lot of images and not a lot of erosion, it just uses 1 image a day. And noon tends to be the best time, especially in winter, because that's when the sun's out. So the downside is if the image at noon is, let's say, foggy or something, then you lose that entire day. But we'll try it. So we'll press run section, and what it really does is it prompts you here to only use images at noon. I'll just say yes. And then, actually, I am going to say no. We don't really have a lot of images here. So yeah. And then there's a second option. Well, do you want to just at least narrow it down to like every hour, every 2 hours, every 4? And it kind of seemed like some big changes happened around this time. So I'm actually just going to do every hour. I'm not scared. That's it. Moving on. So now we're in the section measure eroding feature in each image. So this is the meat and potatoes of the code. You can see by our scroll bar, we're towards the end actually. So I'll press run section, and it loads up the first image. You can click full screen if you want. Now you can see if I put my target on the blue circle, either this blue circle should have been at the base of that landward or of that seaward stake, and so either they weren't in a perfect line with the camera, which is understandable, or maybe there was tall grass and I was clicking it, and so when I calibrated it, it calibrated like a foot above the stake. Either way, it's not really a big deal, but basically you want to have sort of an imaginary line drawn between that stake and this one, and then click where the bluff edge is between there. And so that's also kind of up to your interpretation. And I say that because, I mean, this could be bluff edge out here, or you might notice this big crack that runs along. And so it might be this, this caved in area here. And I'll do that. It seems more likely that it's the caved in area. And I will just click. Before I do, I just want to point out one other thing. So there's this black dashed line that's running here. It's very faint, but it's there. And if you click below this black dashed line, what it'll do is it'll skip that image. So if you have one that's really blurry, you just don't like it, it doesn't give you a good idea of where the bluff edge is, just click below there and it'll skip. Okay, so we will click and it loads the next image. And we'll click that one and keep doing this over and over. And I'll make this a little bigger. What I try to do is, I try to wiggle my mouse around every time because it's not, I mean, we know things aren't really changing, but you just get a better idea of the exact center when you kind of have to reassess it every time. Also just keeps you fresh. So when I get an image like this, I mean, I have context of the past images of right where it is, and I guess there's enough contrast here where I can still identify that edge. But if it gets any worse, I mean, this is pretty washed out. I can still see it, and now it's like I'm not really sure. So by moving your mouse around, I mean, you're more honest with yourself, and if there was a change here that you didn't really see, you might miss it if you just are kind of clicking through mindlessly and not kind of assessing every image. So I'm going to click down here on this one. And now it's cleared up, so I'll go back to finding my edge. All right, so it's done in a very non-glorious way. It just exits out when you finish, and we can move on. We got a few new variables, which is nice. And one of the biggest variables is just called EF, so that's eroding feature. And it is our measurement of how far everything eroded in this time period, which is probably basically 0, like no change. And I could actually come over here and double click it and see, and so all my values here, it's this means it's 7 meters away from that dot, and since it's a negative, it's to the left of the dot. And yeah, and you can see every time, I mean, it went down, got as close as 6.9 as far as 7.06. So I had probably a user uncertainty of about 7 centimeters, which is pretty good. So now we can run this section. It's just called plot it, but probably foolishly I put a save here in the plot it. So this is actually where it also saves what you get. So let's run this section. And there's our plot, which I guess runs away from you, but you can go find it, look at it. And so it looks like a horrible wiggly mess, but of course you can see the y-axis that there's really no change. If we were to bring that down, see it's pretty stable over time. And that's data, that's a result. So we will save it, and we save it in that time-lapse coding folder, time-lapse measure. And we have a really easy naming scheme of this mess. And it actually auto-populates the name for you, although naming scheme is a little different than what it decided. But at least it got the dates. So here, we're going to do pth underscore, and this was profile 7 underscore, and then the start date and end date. So year, 2018, month, April, month or day 14, and then the end date, same thing. So that was just half a month, not too painful. and understand why we didn't really have any erosion. So we'll press save and continue on with our lives. So that was great. Now, if we want to run this again for the next folder, you can go right back up to setup, and the very first line in setup, clear all, close all CLC. This will basically just restart your whole thing, so there's nothing else you have to do. I'll just say run section, and then go back to my time lapse, tank farm 2, and we did that one, so now I'm going to do this one. This one is almost 4 months of data. It's 3 months. We'll say okay. Nothing happens to tell us that it worked, apparently. It's hanging, so maybe that's telling us that it's working. But yeah, it should actually direct to that folder. So there's a little spinny bar, and there it is. Oh, interesting. Is it done yet? No. Okay. I'm going to go look at the folder myself just to see what's in here. So you can see the photos from these Bushnell cameras are labeled actually pretty well. It's the month and then the day, and then just 4 numbers to give them a numbering system. And I guess that numbering system just restarts every time you clear it. But yeah, so then that was that previous one we just did. And here's this one. Let's scroll through quickly and just see, yep, consistent all throughout. The nice thing about the Bushnells is that they have an infrared camera and they can detect day and nighttime. And so we had a setting to just say don't take pictures at night. Yeah, so that saved us some data. The Wingscape ones that we've been using take pictures at night, and they're kind of annoying to deal with. All right, looks happy now. So now I'm in calibrate site, and I will run the section, and I will again tell it calibration data already exists, and go find it. And I can do this because the camera hasn't moved. And so notice here I did have calibration data for profile 6 as well. And there's some interesting naming schemes, but one of the best things to do is just look at the date stamp and say, okay, the most recent one is probably the one that the most recent one is probably the one that is the best. Open, profile 7, calibration. Okay, scroll down. So it says optional, but I think you have to run this even if you don't want to use its options. And again, I am going to do, well, one thing to look at is if erosion really did happen or not before you just do every single hour. Because it might just be unnecessary to do so much. So the first and last image in the folder, I just opened them up, and it really doesn't look like much of anything happened. I mean, you can see a few little chips were taken off, but it's nothing to write home about. So I'll probably just use daily images because it's nice to know what day that happened, but beyond that, it's not a crazy amount of information that we need. So I will say yes, only use images at noon. Very cool. And then we can go to the next section, measure eroding feature in image. Run the section. And again, we have our image, and we have this dot. We see this stake from profile 7, and then this black line. If the image sucks, we can click below the black line. And it's similar to the last time we were clicking because this is really just the next day. So I'm just going to run along, and I'm just going to line up my thing with the base of the stake and just click the part closest to there. When it actually does its measurement, it doesn't really, I don't think it does like a hypotenuse. I think it just does the left and right distance. So that will help us out. Click, and it's the next day. And again, I'm kind of moving my mouse every time, and you'll notice, I mean, if you click, and then it loads the next one, you won't even get a cursor until you move your mouse. Yeah, so you'll get busted. Move that mouse. Get a little bit of user error in there. It's okay, because this is a good measurement of your overall user error when you move the mouse around. Otherwise, you only have a sample size of 1. That initial decision on where the bluff edge is going to be your only context for how accurate you really are. And it might be that, at first you think, oh yeah, that's a bluff edge, and then you get a different lighting condition and it actually changes what you thought. And so keep that in mind. Another thing is, I mean, I'm clicking directly on the bluff edge. You can like come up here and just line up the thing and just click if you wanted and just get the line on there, because it's only recording that. Well, I hope that's true, unless I change the code. It should only be recording that distance in the left-right direction. Okay. There's a blurry one. Click down below. So you notice that red line that's coming out from the blue circle. The idea there is that when you actually have 2 stakes that haven't been eroded and the bluff edge is out in front of them, then you'd be able to just click where the bluff edge intersects this red line, and it's just an indication, nice guide for you. Maybe if I can find time to actually improve this code a bit, I would draw a line between the 2 stakes so that you can just keep following it forever. It's hard to just know in 2016 if this would get used and how effective it would be, and also I was pretty new to coding, so just did what I could. Ooh, look at the pretty mountains out there. Love it when it's a beautiful day out here. Starting to feel less sure of myself as the vegetation has grown in, and I'm sure I'm getting the bluff edge very well, but that's okay. I mean, it's again getting that user error in there, and that's a sad fact of this stuff, but that's also why we have the community go out and take measurements periodically to correct us, because we just can't figure everything out from a little camera. So we're done. We did it. We measured the eroding feature in each image very well, and now I'll click plot it, and this will also save in traditional fashion. The save thing will block my plot. I guess I gotta save it first before I can mess with that now. Okay. So we will go here, hidden, community monitoring, time-lapse coding, time-lapse measure, aptly named, and then come here. Oops. Crap. It moved our naming scheme because I clicked on one of them. Well, just gotta type it in manually. Or you can click on the folder and copy, Control-C, and then here, just do. One issue with typing things in manually is you make mistakes. So I'm gonna do it this way, make sure there's no mistakes. Port Haydn, profile 7, year 2018, from May 3rd to August 24th. Sounds good. You look at the graph, looks right. Okay, save. Again, we didn't really see much erosion, but what I do notice, of course, is that the distance from the seaward stake, and remember this is in negatives, so it's a little counterintuitive, I guess, but my measurements actually got closer to the seaward stake over time, and then got further again. And that was probably that vegetation, and then something happened where I kind of fixed myself, and it's off by about 0.3 meters, which which is about a foot. And so that's understandable. I mean, I think getting a foot accuracy in using this method is pretty reasonable. I'm happy. I mean, obviously you want to do as best as you can and stay consistent, but you don't want to lie to yourself, and you want to just be honest and say, well, this is what I could see, and this is kind of what it seemed like, and maybe I would go back and try to sort this out, smooth this out a little better with another run. But I think for this, I'll just move on. So, shut this down and do the third folder. We're on the first section, setup. Find the folder, time lapse, will take photo 2, last folder, and this one, oh my god, this one's almost an entire year. Oh no. Oh, let's see. I know that it'll be important to capture some stuff here because something big probably happened. So there's our first image. It's too blurry to really know what's happening. Oh, this isn't our first image. So one annoying thing with the Bushnell naming scheme is that it does it by month and not by year. And so if you're just sorting by file name, it's going to start you in January of 2019. Really, the file started in 2018. So I'm going to sort by date modified. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So now it's starting August 2018. Gorgeous day. And then we'll go down, and I know those last ones are blurry, so I'm going to go a little earlier and see if this is better. Oh yeah. Okay, well, definitely some erosion. I still think it's not really that much. I still think we can do one photo a day and call it good. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's not the end times here. So we will just do one a day over the next 8 or so months. Yeah, so we'll select our folder. Go to the next spot, say calibrate site. Oh. There we go. Remember, it's got to load in all the stuff. And if it took a minute before, it's going to take several now. All right, looks like we're functioning normally, so it's finally done loading in all those images. And we can do calibrate site, which again, we press run. We will just tell it, yes, the calibration data exists. And then go find it. Oops, no, calibration. Profile 7, calibration RB2. Okay, cool. Loaded it in. Go to the next section. Oof, that's a lot of code. Glad we didn't have to do that. Yes, again, we're going to only use images at new. That's fine. And then measure feature image. Let's go. So again, it plopped our blue dot. Here's our stake. There's that bluff edge right where we left it. Yeah, it's one issue when you... Oh, we saw it. We saw the erosion. It just happened. Can't go back, but I can click. See it in the graph. Yeah, one issue with camera placement is this one is south facing, and the sun gets real low in the wintertime in the south, and luckily it's cloudy here all the time, but when it's not, that sun can actually blind the camera for a while. Ah, nice fresh bluff edge. Look at that. Beautifully carved. Clicking down here. Remember you click down there to skip. Ooh, the snow. Perfect. Snow is great because it knocks down all the stuff. Yeah, this looks like the bluff edge. I could be wrong though. Ice, not so great. So now there's ice that's built up here and left on the beach. And it's really hard to tell. I mean, I might be able to pick it out, but I might just skip and try to find a better one that's worse. There we go, that's a little better. As long as there's not really erosion occurring, it's fine to skip. But again, you might go through and then decide, you learned some things and you just got to go back and do it again. And it's better to do that than to just have a bad data set. All that ice coming in, ice all over the beach, snow blind, sun blind. Whoa, jeez. Took another big chomp out of here. So now our edge is kind of at an angle, and it's more important to decide where exactly you want to pick it. And it's so close to the poor steak. I wonder if the steak's even there anymore. Or not. This was a year ago. I'll just click there. Kind of decided just that the easiest thing to find here was that bluff part out there, so I'll just use that as my reference. Alright, we did it. Okay, measured them all. Now press run on the plot it section. Run section. Take photo. Let's go back to our time-lapse coding folder. Time-lapse measurements. And put here PTHP7 2018. I did that thing again where I clicked it. And that changed its name. It would auto-populate the name, which is really nice. You can just remember not to click that. So copy the folder here where the images came from, and then just replace this and double check that it all worked right. So pour height in, profile 7 from August 24th, 2018 to May 7th, 2019. Sounds good to me. Press save. And let's investigate our plot. Wow. So this is what I'm talking about. You see those user errors where it bounces all around, and before they were really pronounced because there wasn't really much erosion going on. So any deviation from not moving is going to show up. But in reality, this is what's going on. This tells you the story. So we had our thing, maybe some erosion or maybe just drifting from our vegetation, dying down towards the fall, and then an actual event. Boom. We got it. Another one. Oh my god. A third one. A fourth one. It was crazy. And then it went back to baseline with some bubbliness for user error. And so we went from 7 meters down to 10. So it's about 3 meters, about maybe 10 feet or so of erosion over that season, which is actually really slow for Port Haydn. The last couple of years have been 30 or 40 feet. So this was a happy year, followed by an exciting year that we'll leave for another time. Cool. So we got that. We're good. Press X. And that is stake measure in a nutshell. So there is one other code that we could look at. Maybe I'll just do another video for that. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Just kidding. Don't do that. But I hope this was helpful and maybe better than just a Word document and a lot of frustration. So thanks. Good luck.